Greetings and welcome to week 5, Justice 222 Research Methodology. I want to spend a moment to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of paper. We're all progressing in the same direction. Not that we're not. Things have been going good so far. Appreciate all your writings and all your participation. This is a different class than kind of like the other classes, so it's good to see things are progressing like they are. Anyway, we've been having a pretty good time with the Myths and Realities text. We've been studying, it's important to understand why there's widespread fallacies in our profession, why they exist, how they can impact the expectations placed on us, and how chasing inaccurate assumptions make us ineffective and inefficient. So I think it's important that we've been spending time in here. The first many weeks we've been kind of focusing on this. But I also want to make sure that we are paying appropriate attention to the research methods text. As Tim mentioned in the constitutional law class, that's the whole purpose for the class. Whole purpose for this class is actually understanding research methods. That's where we're supposed to be. This book is where I'm going to gear hopefully the remainder of our discussion board. The weekly quizzes, the midterm, and the final all come out of this text. So I want to make sure that we're paying enough attention to this over here that we're getting. It's not the easiest of topics. We've all, most of us, a lot of us, some of us, have been immersed in investigations and law and legal procedures and things for quite a while, and we're pretty used to that life. Fewer of us have been immersed in the type of scientific research that this text and this class talks about. So we need to focus on that and make sure that we get the general ideas. This week, when you look at the discussion, I want to hone in on two specific topics in the chapter. I want to look at the concept of causation and cause and effect. That's the first thing I want to look at. The first question is geared around causation and cause and effect. Look at the examples, look at the questions in the discussion. I don't want to discuss whether these are true or not. That's not where we are heading. I suspect guns don't kill people, people call people. We can split the room up and discuss whether that's necessarily true or not. But that's not where I want to go. I don't want to go to the truth of the statement. I want to go to I want to look at what cause and effect relationships are implied here. When you say something like that, there's a cause and an effect relationship implied. What is it? Second, what are some of the alternative explanations? Tim started us out with this question. He gave us some anecdotal evidence about marijuana use and whether or not marijuana is a gateway drug to harder drugs. And he talked about, gee whiz, I've been doing this for a while, and I go into houses, and this is what I see, and this is what I know about dopers, and he tries to explain whether or not whether or not it's true that marijuana is a gateway drug. What I'm looking for in addition to that is, does that statement prove, or does Tim's evidence or any evidence prove a direct cause and effect? Marijuana causes harder drug use. Maybe. Tell me what it is. Explain it to me. Are there any other possibilities to explain marijuana use appearing to lead to harder drug use. So that's where I really want to get into our discussions. These aren't the easiest of questions. They're a little more philosophical. When we're in the stop and frisk chapter over in the other class, it's easy to outline, or it's easy to repeat, previous court decisions, policy, procedure. This takes a little more kicking around, and I think we can certainly do that in the discussion board. Pretend we're all sitting in class in a big circle, and I've just thrown this out. Okay, what's the proof of cause and effect that marijuana is a gateway drug to harder drugs? And throw out some ideas, throw out some arguments, throw out some other alternatives and possibilities. It's great in this section of the class to wonder and question and be curious. You don't have to have the answer every time you post something. You can post a question, you can post a possibility. That's right, I'd like to go with this. The second question talks about, when we study something, how does what we measure affect our results? And it talks about a way to measure patients in hospital beds, and it says, gee whiz, what if we did this same thing measuring, say, jail cell usage? So, envision that Tim's over here managing a jail, and Eric's over here managing a jail, and the two jails are identical. Just amazingly, Kotzebue and Kodiak have got the same crime rate and the same criminals and the same highly efficient cops that arrest the same types of bad guys. And so when they do their study, they're studying two identical jails. And lo and behold, Tim's study tells him that the majority of his prisoners, inmates, custodians, the majority of them are long-term tenants. Most of his prisoners are there for the long term. Eric studies the exact same set of circumstances in his jail, but he comes up with the results that the majority of his people are short-term tenants. So they're looking at the exact same thing. Because of the way they measure it, because of when they set up their study, they're saying, okay, these are our players. We're going to study, this over this time period. We're going to study these types of units. And because they pick different time periods and different units, they come up with two different results. How does that impact them? How does that impact their management plans? If Tim walks into the chief's office and says, wow, the majority of our inmates are long-term, and that's the impact that's going to have on our budget and our staffing and our scheduling, and this is what we should do about it. And Eric sits up there with his feet on the desk, because he is the chief, and he's looking at his report, and he says, wow, the majority of my inmates are short-term. How is that going to affect his budgeting plans, scheduling plans, staffing plans? So by looking at the exact same set of circumstances, coming up with two totally different but totally true results, you come up with two totally different answers. Neither one of these answers are wrong, because of the elements of your study. It kind of dictated to what your results were going to be. And so in the long term, I want us to be aware of that. That it's important that we know how and what we're studying before we just accept our answers and plan from there. Because both of these two management plans could lead to totally different results, whether or not Kodiak's jail is going to be effective and efficient, and whether Kotzebue's is. So look at those. Those are the two breakouts I want you to look at this chapter more than anything. I want you to understand, and I want you to be able to discuss causation and cause and effect, and I want you to be able to discuss measurement and studies and how those issues and items affect our research and our results. So that's the marching orders for the rest of this week. I'll see you inside.